Schus of learning should be a panacea. We'll start that Vav by the two dots towards the top. It's about 7 lines from the top. Vav Amidala, 6a. It says, Mafrishin Kayin Gadol V'chulu. At the beginning of the Masechta, we learned that 7 days before Yom Kippur, the Kayin Gadol was separated from his house. Basic, from his house to Lishkas Parhedron. So the Gemara asks, Lama Mafrishin? Why was he separated? So the Gemara asks a question on the question. Lama Mafrishin? Why was he separated? Kida Kamrinan. As we said, that was the whole discussion. Rabbi Yochanan, Rish Lakish. Either Rabbi Yochanan, if it's according to Rabbi Yochanan, so we explain that Rabbi Yochanan holds that we learn it from the inauguration, the Miluim. That just like by the Miluim, the Kayanim were held, sequestered in the Mishkan for 7 days before Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So it's over here, and also for the Paraduma. Kedisli, as he says, Ila Rish Lakish, if it's according to Rish Lakish, if that's the answer that you want to go by, he said that you learned from Sinai, Kedisli, as he said, that just like Moshe Rabbeinu was held on the mountain for 6 days, so too, the Kohen Gadol is also 6 days, 7. We added it there. So the Gemara says, Hachi Kamar. This is what the Gemara was asking. Mi Beisei Lama Pirish. Why was he separated from his house? Which means, the Gemara is right. Which means, the way Rashi puts it is, come again? He could have, how do you want us to put this? If you could have stayed in a different room. If it would be both according to Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish. According to Rabbi Yochanan, he had to be in the Mishkan. According to Rish Lakish, he had to be also like it was held on Mount Sinai, right? Mm-hmm. So he had to be in the Beis Hamikdash. The Rashi puts it is that they could have brought his wife with him. Could have brought his wife. They would have had a suite in the Beis Hamikdash. They could have stayed over there.
Suite in the cloud.
A suite in the cloud.
Well, the whole purpose of the separation was.
Well, Rabbi Yochanan didn't say that. We added that in. But Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish, Rabbi Yochanan said we learned it from the inauguration. Rish Lakish said we learned it from Sinai. So there's other interpretations here. Rashi over here says that bring his wife along. Rashi adds in that obviously the Lishkas Parhedron was not in the temple proper in itself, because or else how could the Kohen Gadol sit down over there? How could he sleep? Ein Yeshiva Ba'Azara L'Malchei Beis David B'Levad. Only the kings of Beis David are allowed to sit in the Azara. So it must have been that it was a room that it was outside of it was like by the wall, but the location was outside.
So Rashi's question, he doesn't even answer it. He really throws that out.
He throws out a question. The question that he's posing is that bring the wife along. The Taisus Yeshanim says, why can't he go back home to his wife in the evening?
And this it says that could you bring her over there? Because it's still on the part of the big commission. So it's not allowed to come and have a.
Oh, so 1 second. Okay, you're throwing in another point. There's a very interesting Tosfos. Tosfos says the kashalon. We have a problem with this. I get it that it's not that the Parhedron Lishkas Parhedron was not in the Azara proper. It was like outside. It would be considered the Temple Mount, the Harabayas. The problem is that the Harabayas is called Machane Leviyah. And in Machane Leviyah, a Balkari is not allowed to be there. Someone that's tummy because of a mission. He's not allowed to be in the Machane Leviyah. So he quotes the Gemara Pesachim. So how could they bring him even bring his wife? He's going to be with his wife on the Harabayas. So it doesn't help that it's not in the Azar. The Harabayas has the same issue. We mentioned this. There's a very strong question which I don't have an answer for. But if this is the case, that a Balkari is not allowed to be in Machane Leviyah, then how did the Leviyim live in the desert? No one lived on the Harabayas, but in the desert, it was the Machane Shechina, Machna Levi and Machna Yisrael. Levim lived around the. I mean, how did they live there? They weren't allowed to be with their wives unless they had separate houses somewhere else for their wives. It's a very strong question. Whatever the case is, when it comes to the Harabayas, Tosfos is asking, according to Rashi, that the Gemara is suggesting that he bring his wife along to stay with him for the 7 days. So he's going to be on the Harabayas. Harabayas, it doesn't help. It's the fact that it's not the Zara. So Tosfos says maybe it was in one of the tunnels which lay Niskadshu. Maybe they were going to have a room in the tunnel, a hotel. That would be a good idea in the tunnels. They have crazy hotels there, underwater. You can scuba dive to get to your room. So okay, so a good business. So that's the Gemara's question. Why does he have to separate from his wife? He could bring his wife along. So Tana Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira Meshemetim to Ishtei Safik Nida V'Yavela. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, which we mentioned before, we needed to mention Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira before because according to Reish Lakish, we only have an answer of why he was separated for 6 days. We didn't get a 7th day in there. So we said Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira says that there's another issue that maybe is going to become Tameh because he's going to live with his wife that's a Safik Nida. Nida is a Tuma. If a woman menstruates, so she's Tameh for 7 days. And if her husband lives with her during that time, so he becomes the same Tuma that's on a Nida, which is 7 days of impurity. The Gemara says, are we dealing with a wicked person that he's going to live with his wife and she's a Safek Nida? She's forbidden to have relations. He can't be with her if she's a Safek Nida. Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe he's going to live with his wife. She was tar. And then she does an examination and she finds that there was blood there. She's actually coming. Now, when did the blood show up? So that's a suffix. Was it there before they were together, or was it there after? If it was before, then he's possibly tamei, right? So it's the tim to suffix. It's gonna come out. You're gonna find later that she was a suffix neither. Amru Rabbanan Kameder of Chisda. The Rabbanan said this over in front of Rav Chisda. Come on, who does this go like? That there's going to be an issue here. It's going to go like Rabbi Akiva. The Amar that Rabbi Akiva says, this is for Yossi. Yossi was here from Masechtas Nida, right? Yossi, when did you start? When we were here? In Bechayras, you think. So you were here for Nida. So, beautiful. So this has to fit with Rabbi Akiva's view. There's a machlekes Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim. The Amar, Rabbi Akiva holds Nida Metam Espayla. The Rabbanan Amri ain't Nida Metam Espayla. So it works like this. We had something in Masechtas Nida, at the beginning of Masechtas Nida, that was called Tumas Mi'es Leis. That if a woman finds blood, so we don't know. See, the blood of the Nida blood of a woman is tamei even when it's inside. Oh, thank you. Even when it's inside, even before it comes out, she's already tamei. Bibisara, it says she's tamei when it's inside her body. She's already tamei, not inside the womb, inside the uterus, but inside the outer area. So even before it leaves the edge of the body, she's tamei. So when it comes out, she was really tamei before. So we said it's metamim eisleis, 24 hours before. Unless she did an examination, we consider her tamei. That means that we have to go back. Did she touch anything that she could have made tamei during that time? So if she's going to touch taras, she should really do an examination and then touch them. All of this doesn't apply today. But what happens is like this. Dr. Stein, you're showing me the gra. What is that?
Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva. No, Rabbi Akiva.
That can't be Rabbi Akiva.
That's the picture.
Okay. So it goes like this. There's 3 levels of there's 3 stages. Let's say husband and wife are together. They have relations. So then she does, if they both do an examination immediately after the relation. So if there's blood on him, And the assumption is that it came from her. Usually men don't believe, but the women are. It would be more probable that it's from her. So we say that it was from her. That means, how did it get on him if it's from her? Because they were just together. So it's from her. So then he's tummy because he lived with Anita. That's how the blood got on him. If the blood is on her, then maybe it was not, and maybe it came after it. So it goes like this. There's 3 levels. It's 3 levels. The first level is called asiyayim. Asiyayim means immediate. It's a Greek word for immediately. If immediately after they separated from each other, she finds blood, then he's considered tummy. If it's lachar zman means that it's enough time for her to get off the bed and to wash herself up. So that's considered lachar zman. During that time, it's considered lachar zman. And then there's another period which is called achar, after the achar zman. After the achar zman could be like up to 24 hours. So what we're saying is like this. Rabbi Akiva holds that up to 24 hours, if the woman finds blood, it goes back and it makes the husband tummy as well. If they were together within the last 24 hours, so then the husband becomes tummy. So what we're concerned about now is like this. Why does the Kohen Gadol have to be separated 7 days from his wife, from his house? It's because within 24 hours after they were together, she could find blood, and then it's going to make him tummy. So they have to separate for those 7 days. The Rabbanan, if it would be the Rabbanan, we say that if you find blood afterwards, it doesn't go back to make the husband tummy. It makes taras tummy, extra chumras, but not to make the person tummy, not to make the husband tummy. Amalu Rav Chisda says to the rabbis that were suggesting this, says, I feel Tim Rabbanan, it doesn't have to be only Rabbi Akiva's opinion. Why? The Rabbi Akiva. When did Rabbi Akiva argue with the Rabbanan, or the Rabbanan argue with Rabbi Akiva? Ella ba'achar achar. That's only with the after the time. That means up to the 24-hour period. Aval b'chad achar maydalei. But if she finds blood within the period of lachar zman, which is the amount of time it takes for her to get off the bed and wash herself, which is probably about 20 seconds or something. So if she finds blood during that time, then it would make him tummy, which means that there is good reason for them to be separated for 7 days, because you don't know what she's going to find after that. Okay. He doesn't become tummy. Nida would make him tummy if she touched him only tumas erev. Only tumas erev. He would go to the mikveh and he would be fine. Right? And the problem is that if you live with the nida, have relations with the nida, then you become tummy 7 days. And he would be 7 days. She's 7 days, he's 7 days. Yeah. Tummy is spoiler. Kamaisa, just like her. Now Reb Zera has an interesting question. Amar Reb Zera, well, he has an opinion, which is going to come out like this. Amar Reb Zera, Shmamina Bayal Nida Ena Kanida, V'Tevel B'Yayim. The rule is like this, that a Nida is tamei for 7 days. She sees blood, she goes to the mikveh, not on the 7th day, she goes to the mikveh the night after the 7th day. Follow? The night after the 7th day. Let's say she sees blood on Sunday. Very good. Very good. What's going to come out is like this. That if you separate the husband for 7 days from his wife, so then when does he go to the mikveh? The night after. That's not going to be satisfactory here, because the night after is going to be already Yom Kippur. Now, there's another rule that we have to throw in to make this understood, is that in order for him to go into the temple, he needs Herev Shemesh. He needs the sun to set after he's gone to the mikveh. What's going to happen here is he's going to go to the mikveh the night after. That's going to be Yom Kippur night. Sunset is not going to take place till the night of Ne'ilah time. So it's not going to help him. The 7 days isn't going to help. He needs 8 days. He also. Usually that would be the case. However, if you go to the mikveh at night, then to be together with the husband, you don't need Herev Shemesh. When you start to do the service in the temple, and to bring sacrifices, you need Herev Shemesh. So comes along Reb Zera and says that although he gets he gets the tuma of a nida, but he doesn't have the tara of a nida. He's allowed to go to the mikveh during the day. That's Reb Zera's chiddush. Shema Mina, we see from this whole Gemara, this Mishnah, that Bayal Nida Ena Kanida B'Tayvel Bayayim, that he can go to the mikveh during the day. And that would help. He goes to the mikveh Erev Yom Kippur, just like all of us go to the mikveh Erev Yom Kippur, some 3 times. And then it becomes nightfall. And then I start the Amrit Bayal Nida Kanida. If you say it's mamish like a nida, emas tabel. When is he going to go to the mikveh? Belelia, by the night. Lemachar, hechi avid avoda. How's he supposed to do the service? The following day, v'aboy herav shemesh. He needs to have the sunset, because that is what affects the purity, is when the sun sets after the mikveh. Obviously, the bayal nida is allowed to go to the mikveh by day.
Did he have an avoida, Belila?
No, I don't think they did anything. He just stayed there. He stayed up all night reading interesting things from Daniel, I think. Yeah, and then discussing what the service was.
So if he didn't have an avoida, what's the issue?
The issue is because the following day there was no sunset until Ne'ilah time, and he has to bring sacrifices, and his purity comes after. His purity comes after he goes to the mikveh, which is already after sunset.
Right, but it would be before any avodah, if there's no avodah till day.
There's no avodah till day, but if he went to the mikveh after sunset, then there was no sunset that came after his mikveh. And you need to have the sunset after the mikveh, not before the mikveh. So therefore, Reb Zera says that a bayal nida could be tayvel bayayin. And then the sunset comes afterwards, and then it's great. The following day, everything is. Yeah, the order is important. Rab Simi min Ardai, he says something different than Reb Zera. Rab Simi min Ardai Yamar, afilu tema bayal nida kanida. The truth is that really a bayal nida could actually be the rule that he has to go to the mikveh at night afterwards. Well, this is going to be a problem, y'all, right? He's going to require 8 days. It says what they did was it wasn't really separated for 7 days. They separated him for 7 days plus an hour. They took him away an hour before sunset on the 8th day, and 8 days before, which means that really the only way that he would be tamei, the 7 days later would have been Erev Yom Kippur Erev Yom Kippur would have been the night before Erev Yom Kippur would have already been the time that he could go to the mikveh. On Erev Yom Kippur he can go to the mikveh, and then if you do it from 24 hours, then it's already before sunset Erev Yom Kippur, and then he would be time that evening. The Gemara has a question. Because we have a machlekes here, Reb Zera and Reb Simi min Ardai, when a bayal nida can go to the mikveh. It says, Kol chayvei tfilos tfilasim bayayim. Anyone that needs to go to the mikveh is allowed to go to the mikveh by day. Nida v'yoldas tfilasim balayla. However, a nida and a woman that gave birth, they have to go to the mikveh at night. Now, the Gemara's medayek. Nida in, an actual nida, the woman, yes, but it's bayal nida, didn't say. So bayal nida loy. Bayal nida go to mikveh by day. It's a kasha. And Rav Simi min Ardai. Simi min Ardai says that a bayal nida needs to go to the mikveh by night. The Brisa didn't say that. The Gemara says no. Nida v'chaldasim miriboy. And it says nida. It means everyone that goes into that category, which includes a bayal nida, a man that lives with a woman that's a nida. Yeah, in Rhode Island, in Providence they had a mikveh that was, I think it was called East Providence. That's where there was a Jewish community, and that's in Newport. But then it became a very dangerous area. Like you wouldn't go there at night without a gun. It became a very Italians, I think. Anyway, they were building a new mikveh, but until they built a new mikveh, they were just using the mikveh on the 8th day during the day. It was just too dangerous to go. Yeah, they couldn't go. The women couldn't go at night. The Rabbanim said they should go by the 8th day. They can't go on the 7th day during the day, because even though it's not a real nida. It's a nida with the zav. It's 7 days plus another 7 clean days, or 5 days plus another 7 clean days. But nevertheless, they said that they should go on the 8th day, 8 after that.
I'm thinking we're sorry to be
Right. Cape Cod may be better. Okay, Meisvei. The Gemara has a question. Balkari Kimaga Sheret. Balkari, a man that has a mission, his tuma is like a sheret, like he touched the sheret. Sheret is tummy for 1 day. Balkari is tummy for 1 day. Goes to the mikvah. Bayol nida. What about a woman? Balkari is someone that has the tuma of a keri. Keri is a shichva zera. There's a fluid that comes out of him that makes him tummy. So a bayol nida. What's by a bayol nida? Is katami mace. He has the tuma of a tummy mace. Tummy mace is someone that became tummy from a corpse, a dead body. So my love with tefillah, the Gemara thinks that what they were talking about over here is that it's talking about tefillah. That a balkari can go to the mikveh by day on the first day, and a bayol nida goes to the mikveh by day after 7 days. It would be a proof. Does a tummy mace go to the mikveh by day? Yeah, we said kol chai b'tfilas tfilasim bayom. Yeah, the Brisa goes to the mikveh by day. The Gemara says lie. Somebody's telling me. Really, the bayal nida needs to go to the mikveh by night. It's talking about l'tamasan. It's only saying that the bayal nida is tummy for 7 days. It's not telling me when he goes to the mikveh. So it's just that it's 7 days. When it says tamasan, that's what you're telling me, that he's tummy for 7 days. That's a pasuk. I don't need a brisa to tell me things that the pasuk says. It says that a tummy mace is tummy for 7 days. Someone that came in contact with the corpses, and a bayal nida is tummy for 7 days. That's the pasuk. You don't have to tell me that. That's not a brisa type of teaching. Elalav l'tfilas, and it must be talking about that you can go to the mikveh by day. So it's a kasha now on Reb Simi Minardai that says that you go to the mikveh at night. A raya to Reb Zera. The Gemara says loy. Loylam, it's not a good raya. Loyla, it's not a good kasha on Reb Simi Minardai. Loylam l'tumas. It's really saying that he's tummy. It's not talking about the tara when he goes to the mikveh. Sefer tzrichale. It's coming to tell me. You see, what happened was you stopped short in the brisa. You didn't finish the brisa. If you read further in the brisa, there's a very interesting point. It says, it's a special halacha called Tumas Medras that a zav or a zava or a nida, if they sit or they sit on a chair or on a bed, but the bed or the chair becomes tummy to the extent that it can make someone that touches that chair, bed, or mat also tummy. Well, they're tummy anyway. So that chair, it's called Mishkav Umaishav, Tumas Medrash, that chair becomes tummy. Now a bayal nida is more strict than a tummy mace because it's coming from the Tumas nida. The tummy mace that's on top of a chair doesn't make the chair tummy unless there's direct contact. But if there's no direct contact, let's say there was two carpets, one on top of another. Only the one that he touched becomes tummy, not the one that's underneath. Yeah, even if it's not direct contact, if it's on top of it. Yeah, we're talking about it's not ba'il. Yeah, but the mace is tummy ba'il. The tummy mace is not tummy ba'il. Someone that came tummy. So mace is an avatama, and neither is also an avatama. A mace itself is aviyavais. The tummy mace is both the same level, but when it gives off the tumah to something that they come in contact with, so direct contact is of course tummy, both of them. But if it's not direct contact, it's just on top of a chair, but not directly. There's a sheet in between, so a tummy mace won't make what's under it tummy, only what it touched, and it neither will make what's under it tummy to the extent that what's under it will become tummy, that will even make a person tummy. A bayal nida is one step lower than that, more strict than a tummy mace, but one step lower than an actual nida. It will make. She has to put in the mikveh. Yeah, the mikveh was. No. 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 She knows that she's tummy. If she puts on new clothing, she's tummy. With the new clothing become tummy. Doesn't resolve the issue. She's tummy for 7 days. So she probably either she had special clothing or she put the clothing in the mikveh, like the laundry. She used instead of no. So just this final point, I'm going to tell you 1 second, that the nida makes what's under her tummy that it could cause a person that comes in contact with it to become tummy. But the bayal nida makes what's under him tummy, but not that it will cause a person to become tummy, but it will make food tummy. Not just food. Food is a lesser level. Okay, yeah.
So today, a woman, nightfall comes and she goes to the mikveh and she's mutar.
Right.
But we're talking about the Kohen Gadol, and he had to go to the mikveh and then wait for nightfall.
So he would go to the mikveh on Erev Yom Kippur for one of two reasons.
I'm saying it's
according to
reversed,
Rebbe,
isn't
and then
it?
wait for nightfall. And then wait for nightfall.
It's reversed.
Yeah.
So then where do we come to learn differently for Nida today?
Oh, because today we're not dealing with taharas. Today, when it would come to dealing with taharas or eating truma or doing karbanas, then you need nightfall afterwards. In other words, in those days, a woman would go to the mikveh at night. It would take an entire 24-hour period after that, 23 hours after that, for her to be able to eat truma and to bring the sacrifices or whatever if she needed to.
But in the meantime, she's mutar to her husband?
She's mutar to her husband immediately. Yeah.
Right now, that's what we were kind of discussing last night, me and you.
That's it. Okay, so the other option is, whatever the case is, the Kohen Gadol is going to the mikveh on Erev Yom Kippur for one of two reasons. Either because it's Reb Zera's opinion that says he can go to the mikveh by day, or it's Reb Shimi ben Ardai's opinion that says that they separated him before the 8th day, before the 7 days, an hour before, and that's why he could go to the mikveh an hour earlier, or anytime during that day. Okay, yeah, it's clear. Okay, Tashima, come and listen. The Tani Reb Chia taught. Reb Chia was the author of the Brises, the collector of the Brises. Reb Chia and Reb Shir, right? Hazav, v'ametzera, v'ametzeras, bayal nida, v'tamimes tfilasim bayayim. You hear? Mamish mefurish. Bayal nida goes to the mikveh by day. Who else goes to the mikveh by day? A zav and a zava and a metzera. Metzeras, a woman that becomes the metzera. And a bayal nida and a tamimes. All of them go to the mikveh by day. Nida v'yaldas tfilasim b'layla. Nida and the yeledas go to the mikveh at night. There was in the yeshiva we have chumash questions on the daily chumash. One of the questions that the teacher asked was, can a woman become a metzora? And it said it in the pasuk. It says Isha. I think it was like clear in the pasuk. But I think they were looking through the Rashis or whatever. I'm sorry. Miriam. Oh, Chaim. It says Miriam, of course. Okay. So Tiyufta, this is a very strong question. Who's this a question? I'll make room for Yaakov. This is a very strong question on Rav Simi min Ardai that says that a bayal nida needs to go to the mikveh at night, because we have a brisa that Reb Chia taught mefurish that you can go to the mikveh by day. Reb Zera is the winner. What is an interesting question? It's unclear what the Gemara is really asking here. But what the words of the Gemara is, why are you separating the Kohen Gadol? To be separated from his wife because of the whole issue of the Safek Nida that could come afterwards. She'll find blood later, and then it's going to come out that maybe she was a Nida when they were together. Why don't you separate him from, according to one shot in this, what the Gemara means, why don't you separate him from everyone? Because one of them may die, and then he'll become Tamei Meis. Now, the reason why this is a very difficult question to ask, what the Gemara really is asking, is because we had a machlekes in the Mishnah if we have to designate another wife for him, because the Kain Gadol needs to be married. We separate another Kain, all right, another wife, possibly if his wife would die. That's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. So he would have to go on shidduchim just in case. I don't know. So so if that's the case, the sages told to it would be speed dating, yes. So the sages told Rabbi Yehuda, "Ein l'davar saif." If you're going to suspect death, then there's no end to that. Maybe this one will die. Maybe that one. There's no end. We don't suspect the death. We suspect that maybe someone's going to become tummy. So now the Gemara is asking an odd question because we already resolved this in the Mishnah that you don't suspect the death. So, yeah, go ahead.
So we don't suspect that because there's really a contact with you.
Oh, that's a good point. So, that's the teretz. Very good. Probably the pshat is like this, that I don't suspect that this individual is going to die, but I could suspect that someone could die without pointing fingers. But statistically, the more people you're with, the more the odds raise. So why don't we separate him from everyone? Okay. There's other pshatim over here. There's Teisus Yishanim. Maybe someone that was coming mace is going to come in. Yeah. Okay. There's different ways of learning it, but that's the way you all said it is the easiest way to get out of this issue. Amar Rav Tachlifa Abu Ad Rav Huna Bar Tachlifa. We've had this before. Rav Tachlifa, the father of Rav Huna Bar Tachlifa, he says, Mishmei de Rav, in the name of Rabba Zaysemeres Tumasames Huchi B'tzibar. Obviously, if he would become Tami Mace, we're going to say that it's Hutra B'tzibar. Now, there's machlekes. When you see what happens is like this: the service in the temple needs to be done in purity. However, community things have a dispensation that if there's impurity, you can still do it. For example, if the entire congregation is tamei for the Korban Pesach, so instead of waiting to Pesach Sheni, you can all do the Korban Pesach on Pesach Rishon. It's called Tuma Hutra B'tzibar. Yeah, I don't know if it's the same. It's similar to Shabbos. If there's a matter of life and death, then we say that Shabbos is Hutra. Shabbos is pushed off. Now, the word here is, there's a machlekes about if you really say that. Do you say Hutra or Dechuya? Do you say that it becomes permissible, or do you say that it's postponed or pushed off? So the difference is like this. I mean, in logic, it works like this. If when you say that there's an exception to the rule, do you say that at that point the rule doesn't exist? That there's no prohibition at all? That would be Hutra. So for example, for Shabbos, do you say that there's no issue on Shabbos? If there's a matter of life and death, there's no issue. Or do you say, no, there is an issue, but nevertheless you overrule it? Because this is more important. You have to weigh it out, and life and death is more important. And the difference would be, let's say, what you're allowed to do. Should I try to minimize the prohibitions that I'm doing? Or do I say, no, there's no Shabbos at all? You don't have to try to minimize anything. Hutra, it's totally permissible. There's no Shabbos now. Right? You get into the car to drive to the hospital because of a baby, whatever. Can you turn on the tape recorder? Is it Hutra? No, I don't know if that's a real example. What's a tape recorder? Right. So yeah, all of these things would go into that. If you don't have food for the person, this is a Gemara. If you don't have food for the person and the person needs meat, can you eat treif, or should you shecht an animal and it's on Shabbos? Eating treif is not a violation of Shabbos; it's a violation of treif. If you say hutra, then there's no question that you shecht on Shabbos because there's no prohibition at all, right? If you say dechuya, then it's not so clear. It's pushing off 1 second. It's a violation. So now when it comes to Tumah, Tuma B'tzibur. Do you say that it becomes entirely permissible? And there's no prohibition at all. So we're not concerned that someone's going to pass away while the Kayan Gadol is there, because there's going to be no problem if he passes away. Why? He can still do the service. Why? Because the service that he does on Yom Kippur is all communal service. So there's no problem. But if you say that it's Dechuya, then we should try to be avoiding everything. And we should make sure that he doesn't become tummy. We should separate. The fact that we don't take any precautions obviously means Hutra. Who's saying this? Rava is saying this as being said over by Rav Tachlifa, the father of Rav Huna. Ravina says, I feel tema tumas meis dechuya betzibur. Even if you say that when there's tuma, it's only pushed off, but the prohibitions are still there. Nevertheless, tumas meis leishricha and tumas beis leishricha. This was it's not so common. What do they say? Like, how often do cars fall off this cliff? Only once, right? It's not so common for someone to die, but for someone to become tamei, for a woman to become tamei, that's every month she becomes tamei. So a woman, he doesn't have. A woman becomes tamei every month, and neither is every month. She has a cycle, but it doesn't mean that he's going to be with her at that. Yeah, that's a good question. It's a good question. No, yeah, but no, yeah, it's a good question. It's a chazaka. Reb Naftali, Yoel is asking. Yeah, I'll show you. Yoel, raise your hand. Yoel is asking a question like this. Let's say she was just tummy. She just had her period. So she has a chazaka now that she's clean. So why do you have to go through this whole thing? She has a chezkas tara for a certain amount, for 2 weeks approximately, where she's not going to become tummy. It's a good question. I don't know the answer. But you have an answer that. So it could be.
It's true, but she still has to check herself after every.
She would still have to check herself. It's not 100%.
It's not 100%.
It's not 100%. So it still could be that there was okay. So whatever the case is, now we have two opinions here. Is this a proof? The fact that we're not concerned that someone's going to pass away, is this a proof that Tumah is Hutra B'tzibur and we don't care about it at all, because even if someone does pass away, the Kohen Gadol can still do the service? Or the other opinion here is, Ravina says that no, we are concerned about it. The only thing is, it's not probable. So why didn't we separate him from every person because they could pass away when they're in his presence? Because it's not probable that that's going to happen. Okay, Itzmar. We have a statement. This is the sugya of Putra or the Chuya. The famous sugya. Putra or the Chuya. It's Machlekes, Reb Nachman and Reb Shesha says we'll see. Itzmar Tumas Ames. When there's the impurity that comes from a corpse. Reb Nachman Amar Hutri Hibetzibur. Reb Nachman holds that it's Hutter. There's no prohibition of impurity anymore. And Reb Shesha Samar Dechuya Hibetzibur. Reb Shesha says that it's postponed, but the prohibition is still there. Machlekes Reb Nachman and Reb Shesha. And the question would be, what if you still have to take precautions? Okay, we're talking about when it comes to community sacrifices. We say that the community overrules the laws of impurity, and you can still bring the sacrifices even though there's impurity. Let's say, remember we said that the Kayanim family were divided into 24 families, and those families were divided into each day. So into 6, we said, or possibly 7, but 6 was probable. And then the 7th day on Shabbos, they were all together. So, like cousins, each day would be another family. So, to avoid the fighting. So they would take turns. So if in that family there were some that were tahar and some that were tamei, so then kuli alma like pligid to turn avdi. Those that are tamei in that family don't do the service. Tameim layavdi. Only the tahirim could do the service, not the tameim. Keep ligi. The question, the machlekes here is Rav Nachman and Rav Sheshes. Should they go to their cousins and get other kayanim that are tahar? Because this whole family is tamei. Do we say that, look, we're all tamei, so tuma is hutra. We have no problem. Let's bring the sacrifice bituma because it's permissible. Talking about the carbon tamei, the whatever, community sacrifice. Or do we say that, well, it's not such a big deal to get our cousins. Let's go get them. So Rav Sheshes says you have to get them, and Rav Nachman says no, you do it yourself, even though there's tuma in that family. Rav Nachman Amar heter hi b'tzibur v'lei madrinan, that you don't have to get anyone else. Rav Sheshes Amar d'chuya b'tzibur madrinan. Dr. Stein, what are you showing me with that? Oh,
you wearing a necklace?
That's my headphones. This is a probability formula. That's all, and I don't understand it. And by the way, you were right. That was Rabbi Akiva Eger, and not the other Rabbi Akiva. I didn't realize it until after you said that.
I'm so glad you know.
well, it's a difference of
Many
200
years.
to 2,000 years.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. I just put in Rabbi Akiva.
A zero. What's a zero? Okay. So Rav Sheshes says that it's you got to get another kayan from the cousins to get them. Ikadamri, that those that say that the machlekes is much larger, the much bigger range in this machlekes. Even if in that family itself, amongst the brothers, some of them are tamei, some of them are tar. Polygraph Nachman Abdi Nami Tameim says it's a community sacrifice. Rav Nachman holds that even those brothers themselves that are tamei can do it. And they say, why? Let your younger brother do it. No. I can do it because it's a community sacrifice and there's no prohibition at all, according to Rav Nachman. The call to masmes b'tzibur rachman asharia, the Eibishter permits it. There's no prohibition there. There could be that there's like in law, sometimes you have this rule, prohibition, and then there's an exception. The question is, does it mean that there's no rule at all? There's no prohibition at all? Or, I don't know of an example in American law that you would have this, but I'm sure there's examples of, I don't know, sometimes let's say certain rules don't apply to the police or something. Does it mean that it doesn't, can they go through red lights just to get the donut?
Oh boy.
The rule not apply at all? Is it?
No, the sheriff is saying no.
Okay. Amar Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes says, Mina Amina. Mina Amina la. Where do I know that the rule still applies and you still have to take precautions? Rav Sheshes said the Chuya. It says like this, the Tanya, because we have a brisa. It says, if the person is bringing the mincha of the Aimer, minchas Aimer. Minchas Aimer is the barley grain. They would harvest it the night after Pesach, the first day of Pesach. And the following day, in the morning, they would bring it as a sacrifice. They would bring, it would come together with an animal, a sheep, a male sheep, and this was toasted or roasted, the barley grain. V'nitzis biyadai, and it becomes tamei while he's handling it. So there's two versions to this Gemara. Im yeshem acheres, Aimer lehavi acheres. That's what they add in. He says to bring acheres and acheres. Maybe an acheres tachta. They bring another one if there's others. If there's other grain, they bring the other grain. V'mein sham elahi. If you only have that grain, Aimrim lai, they tell him, have it pikeach u'shasik. So be smart and don't say anything. Katani miyas. How nevertheless it was taught, maybe an acheres tachta, that you try to get other grain. If it's possible. If it's possible, then you try to get other grain. What are we saying? That the prohibition is still there, and we're trying to take precautions. That's Rav Sheshes' view. It's mamish brisa is much stronger than Rav Nachman and Rav Sheshes. So second, third generation Amoraim, they have a brisa that says that you try to avoid the Tumah. Amar Rav Nachman, it's Kashan Rav Nachman. This is Rav Sheshes saying this. Amar Rav Nachman says, Medina Hechedik Yisraim Lachila. Even though the sacrifice is offered when there's Tumah, but the sacrifice can't be eaten b'tumah. It's only what goes on the altar is accepted. But no one's allowed to eat that. And since when it comes to the Karban Aimer, there's the leftovers that's eaten. I think did they do Kmitza on the Aimer? And then they ate what was left. So if that's the case, remind me of what you said with the Kohen Gadol last year. The Kohen Gadol was Gadol. Kohen Gadol was okay, good. Yeah, you were correct. You're correct. Okay, so when it comes to that's too far. It's so the Kohen he brings it. He tries to bring a kosher one. Why? He tries to bring a tahar one because we want to be able to eat what's left over, and this everyone agrees to. Okay, I got it. Dr. Stein is showing me with donuts. Okay, Meisvei, the
My client did not mean to assume the option.
Meisvei, the Gemara has a question. Hayamakriv minchas parim ve'elam mukvasim. The Gemara is a little bit vague here. It doesn't tell me which sacrifices exactly. But the Kohen is standing there and he's offering the mincha, the meal offering that comes along with cows, rams, and sheep. When it's misbiyada and it becomes impure. Yeah, someone asked, why does it have to say that? Why don't you just talk about the animals themselves? Or someone asked that question, one of them, whatever the case is, they tell him like this. It becomes tamei. He says, is there any other meal offering? I'll bring another one. The main shemelahi, but if there's only that meal offering, say, be smart and don't say anything. Just continue offering it. My love, is it not paramela kvasim dechag that we're dealing with community sacrifices? Now, if that's the case, community sacrifice means the term of the Gemara is that it's the cow, the ram, and the sheep of Sukkot, which then gets a lot of animals, right? 13 cows on the first day, 14 sheep, 1 ram. I think so. Whatever the case is, this is a community sacrifice, and it could be brought to Tumah. So we're seeing that you try to avoid it being brought to Tumah. It's a raya to Rav Sheshes, a kasha to Rav Nachman. Amalach Rav Nachman says, you see, here's the issue. We had this question a minute ago, and Rav Nachman resolved it. He resolved it by saying that, well, part of it is eaten, and we want it to get eaten. But now we're dealing with a meal offering that comes with, when it comes with an animal, it's not eaten, it's totally burnt. So there goes Rav Nachman's answer. So we ask the question again. Now it's a really strong question. All of the minchas nesachim are not eaten; they're just burnt on the altar. Now, being burnt on the altar, if it's tumah and it's tzibur, then there's no problem. You just burn it on the altar. According to Rav Nachman, there should be no problem. Why should they have to try to bring another one? There should be no problem. According to Rav Sheshes, we get it why you tried to bring another one, because tumah is dechuya. It's only postponed, but it's not, doesn't become permissible entirely. So Amalach Rav Nachman respond, Loi parim, Loi, it's not so. Parim, when it says the cows, Par Avodah Zarah, it's talking about a cow that's brought when there's a prohibition of Avodah Zarah that's done. And even though Afal Gav, the Tziburu, even though it's when the community worships Avodah Zarah, but given like Kvi'olezman, because you can bring it any time, Madrinan. You see, when is Tumah Hutra B'Tzibur according to Rav Nachman? A community sacrifice that has a designated time. You don't have to say, let's get someone that's there. You do it right now. So here, although it's a community offering, but there's no time for it. I could bring it tomorrow, so why not do it tomorrow? Even Rav Nachman would agree. Manana. Okay. Elim, what is it talking about? The rams? Be'ela shel Aaron. We're talking about the ram of Aaron. Now, Afagav the Kvi'olezman, even though it's the ram of Aaron that's brought on Yom Kippur, even though it has a set time, but given the Yachidim Madrinan, but because it's a private offering, Aaron has his own offering together, but he brings the ram of the people, but he also brings the ram, his own ram.
And after Aaron passed away,
Yeah, the Kohen Gadol has his own offering.
Hold on.
It's called the Ram of Aaron. So, Madrina, Kvasim, and what about the sheep? The Keves Habayim Ma'omer, the Kashrayim Bachila. Oh, that you answered before. That we're talking about that you're going to be able to eat the remnant of the meal offering. It's the Aimer. It's the Minchas Aimer where you eat the remnants. Okay. Basically, the Gemara has a question. Dam shenitma bezarku. If the blood that you're sprinkling from the sacrifice becomes tamei and it was sprinkled, it doesn't work if it was done b'mezid. Why not? Why not? If it becomes permissible, so what's the issue? If you say that it's a community sacrifice, if we're dealing with a community sacrifice, you can sprinkle the blood b'tumah, even on purpose. So what are you telling me, that it's not an appeasement? If it's permissible, of course it's appeasement. Again, the Gemara says, Kitani hidiyachid. We're not talking about a community sacrifice. You get so excited about this that you're looking for a resolution. You found the brisa, but the brisa wasn't talking about that. Tashima.
So if not really enough answer.
Yeah, this was the Gemara says. It wasn't talking about. Okay, the way it works is like this. There's a front plate, the tzitz that the Kohen Gadol wears. Now, if there's ever any impurity in the temple, the tzitz is an atonement for that sort of sin. Right? Different sacrifices are atonement for different sins. This is atonement for impurity in the temple. The brisa says like this: Alma tzitz meratz. What does the tzitz appease for, atone for? Aladam, valabasar, valachelev, shenitma, blood, flesh, fat that became tamei. Bein b'shegig bein b'mezid. Whether it became tamei b'shegig by accident or on purpose. Bein b'ain mesbein bratzim. Bein b'yachid bein b'tzibur. Whether it became for an individual or for a community sacrifice. The problem over here is that you mentioned the community sacrifice. You need an atonement for it. You need an appeasement. If you follow Reb Nachman's view that there's absolutely no prohibition, so why do you need an appeasement? Right? Amalach Reb Nachman says, you know what that brisa is referring to? When was that referring to? I know it mentioned over there tzibur, but that part of the brisa was talking about ayachid, ad yachid. It says it threw it in because it has all the cases, but don't be specific that each one of these possibilities was specific. No, it was just a general, and it was referring to the yachid. Majority, right.
Like when we talk about carbon based like right? So because if you're telling me, you still can't go for
Yeah, that's a good question.
Good question. And the rest of the all.
He does that every day. That's not a good one.
And to understand this, you have to assume that when it says here, atonement means that every single person in the community must do it. I just automatically assumed the people who are tummies still participate because they make a majority.
Maybe that's what Rashi was saying. I was ignoring a point.
I
I was ignoring a point from Rashi because I didn't understand it 100%.
No, he got it.
Rashi was throwing in a point over here that there's tumas aguf as well.
Yeah.
He says that there's a difference between a yachid and a tzibur. That if there's tumas aguf, if the person himself is tummy because of something that came from his body, so then the tzitz doesn't help. It was only tumas meis. When it comes to a tzibur, I'm not sure. I don't understand 100%. But yeah,
You're understanding that my understanding that the person is tummy, he can't go to the other.
Right. Right. But let's say this base of these kayanim that are working in they become tamei, and they have to do the community sacrifice of the carbon common. So we have machlokes between machlokes of Nachman and Rav Sheshes if they're allowed to perform it.
You just raised
Okay.
2 points in the Kohen Gadol race.
Biba Yisema. You want there's another teretz. I feel tem b'tzibur b'hanach lekfil azman. Even if you say it's community sacrifices, but if it's a sacrifice that doesn't have a designated time, like we said before, the korban of Avodah Zarah, the community worships of Avodah Zarah, it's community sacrifice, but nevertheless, you can bring it another time, so therefore we don't allow it if there's tumah there. Okay, Meisvei, the Gemara has a question. Aaron will carry the prohibition of the sin of the sacrifices. In which sin does he carry? We're talking about that the tzitz, he'll bear the sin. He'll be an atonement for the sin. Which sin are we talking about? Imavain pigel. If we're talking about pigel, now over here when it says pigel, it doesn't mean what pigel usually means. Usually pigel means that he has thoughts of doing the service after the allotted time. Here it means that it's thoughts of doing the service after the out of the allotted place, which is different than what pigel usually means. It says that it's not acceptable. So he's not atoning for that. If it's talking about not nicer, which is leftover meat, it's talking about if he thinks that it should become, that it's going to do part of the service out of the allotted time. We say that sacrifice isn't counted. Rather, we're only talking about that he carries the sin of impurity, which that becomes permissible when there's a community. Now, at that point, that we find that there's a permissibility if there's in a community. What are we seeing over here? That the Brisa says, Shehutra Michlala B'tzibur. Becomes permissible. It doesn't say it's Sheduchaya. B'kashal Rav Sheshes. B'kashal Rav Sheshes. Now, Shmuel was asking me, you and Shmuel's question? So Shmuel was asking, what's the difference between tiyufta or kasha? So, I don't have 100% answer, but when it says kasha, it doesn't mean that we're done. Like, for example, here, we're going to paskin like Rav Sheshes, but tiyufta means that we're done. Right. The kasha Rav Sheshes, kasha Rav Sheshes. And then the Gemara can go on and resolve it. Yeah. Kasha means that we can still be the halacha. And the tiyufta means that we're done. That's it. Oh, he was asking what's the difference? Teiko. I'm not sure. I have to look it up. Tanaihi. It's machlekes Tanaim. So, in other words, even though you quoted a brisa that's a kasha and Rav Sheshes, but it doesn't knock off Rav Sheshes' opinion entirely, because Rav Sheshes will say that brisa that you quoted is the other opinion. The Tanya was taught in the brisa. Tzitz, when it comes to this front plate that the Kohen Gadol wears, he doesn't have to wear it the whole time. Well, we're not discussing if he has to wear it the whole time yet. What we're really discussing is, does it atone for any sin of tumah even when he's not wearing it? It's what become tummy if it becomes tummy, but we're talking about if the sacrifices are. It's not like yeah, you would put in anything that becomes tummy, put in the mikveh. Yeah, it's not a problem. It's engraved. So tefillin is even put in the mikveh if it becomes tummy. Yeah. So you'll see in the last two prakim of mikvahs discusses if you have to take the knot out on the tefillin when you put it in the mikveh, if the water can get in there or something. Anyway, here we're saying that even if he's not wearing the tzitz, it's still an appeasement. It still works. It's still effective, even if he's not wearing it. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, only while he's wearing it. Amalei Reb Shimon. This machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and Reb Shimon. Rabbi Yehuda says It only works. It's only functioning while he's wearing it. And Reb Shimon says it's always functioning. Amar lay Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon responds. Reb Shimon says to Reb Yehuda, the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur is a proof to my opinion. On Yom Kippur, he goes into the Kodesh HaKadoshim and he's not wearing the tzitz. And if there would be any tumah, it would still work. She'enai de'al mitzvah meratz, it's still going to work because it's community sacrifices. It's still going to work. You see? Okay. Amalei Rabbi Yehuda responds to that. Hanach l'Kohen Gadol b'Yom Kippurim. No, the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur is different. She'tumah hutra b'tzibur, because the tumah is hutra. There's no, you don't need the tzitz on Yom Kippur. Most of the service he's not wearing it. But he's saying, don't bring me a proof that it works even when you're not wearing it from Yom Kippur, because on Yom Kippur I don't need it. It's community sacrifices. What am I seeing? Rabbi Yehuda holds that you don't need the tzitz because it's community sacrifices. That means that it's futra. And Reb Shimon holds that you need the tzitz because it's the chuya. So Reb Sheshes would follow Reb Shimon. Michlal, the Reb Shimon tzavur tumah the chuya b'tzibur. That Reb Shimon holds tumah is the chuya. Reb Sheshes has a good support. Yeah, this becomes contradictory rules because Machlekes Reb Yehuda and Reb Shimon we follow Reb Yehuda. Machlekes Reb Sheshes and Reb Nachman we follow Reb Sheshes. Yeah. Amar Abaya. Abaya says like this: B'nishbar tzitz, if the tzitz is broken, the kuli amalei pligid leimratz, everyone agrees that it's not effective. Ki pligi the tali b'sichsa. The whole machlekes. You have to get a new, something cracked or something. You have to get a new one. You have to make a new one.
It's just like original, like copyright.
I don't know. Maybe.
But they have a factory for chicken.
Yeah, maybe that's the pshat. Because Rebbe Elazar bar Rabbi Yossi, Yaakov, you remember in Sukkah, Rebbe Elazar bar Rabbi Yossi said that I was in Rome and I saw the tits. And it was Kodesh Lashem B'shita Acha.
No, like nowadays.
One line or two lines.
Back then, they really.
Yeah, but could be they had other ones. It could be. Okay. It comes with the drone. Keep leaking the tali b'sef. So the machlekes over here is if the tzitz is hanging on a nail. Rabbi Yehuda savar, that means he's just not wearing it. Rabbi Yehuda savar al meitzach benasa. It says, I don't have the psukim here. Does anyone have the full pasuk? What does it say? If yeah, Bahaya. So it doesn't have the word tamid in that pasuk.
Yeah, no. Keep on going.
Okay. So on the pasuk it says al meitzach. It's going to be on his head. Vinasa, and it's going to bear the sin, which means it's going to be an appeasement. So Reb Yehuda savar al meitzach vinasa. That only when it's on his forehead is it going to bear the sin, which means an appeasement. Reb Shimon savar tamid l'ratzin lefnei Hashem. It has to be always there, and only when it's there is it going to be an appeasement. My tamid, what does it mean always? Ilema tamid al mitzchay. If it means that it needs to be always on his head, nimishkachasla. Milay boy, is that possible? Milay boy male besakise doesn't have to use the bathroom. Milay boy mainam doesn't have to go to sleep. He has to take it off. One second. Not 100%. Sort of. Ella, 1 second. Wait a second. Ella tamid meratzehu. What it means tamid is not that he always wears it. It's tamid meratzeh. It always works even if he's not wearing it. That's Reb Shimon's view. Rabbi Yehuda nami. What does Rabbi Yehuda do? Aksif tamid. It says always, and it's impossible for him to wear it always. Hahu tamid shleisiach daita mimena. That tamid, that always means that he's never allowed to take his mind off it when he's wearing it. Kid Rabbi Baravuna. Like Rabbi Baravuna says, look at this Gemara. Yeah. Together. Rabbi Baravuna says, you see the tefillin comes up. A person has to always adjust his tefillin. I don't know, both. Right. Kal v'chomer mitzitz. It's a kal v'chomer. Yeah, Yossi's asking if you always have to think about the tefillin, how do you always think about the tzitz? Yeah, you have to, if you can't keep your mind on two things, saying it's the same thing. Okay, so a person has to always adjust his tefillin at every moment, and we have a kal v'chomer from the tzitz. Ma tzitz shein bayalaz karachas. If the tzitz only has, whereas, or just as the tzitz only has one mention of Hashem's name, right? Kodesh LaHashem. Amra Torah, the Torah says, Al Metzchi Tamid. It has to be always on your forehead. And what do we say from that? Rabbi Yehuda says that. What does Tamid mean? That you're not allowed to take your mind off. You can't lose concentration. Tefillin sheyesh b'askaras harbe. I don't know. I forget how many. 21 or something. How many mentions of Hashem's name are in the tefillin? So alachas kama v'kama. All the more so, there should be. You should not take your mind off it. Okay. So Taisvus over here asks, it's not such a great kal v'chomer because the tzitz has it exposed. The tefillin doesn't have it exposed. I mean, there's other things over here that. So Taisvus says it's not a kal v'chomer midaraisa. It's a rabbinic kal v'chomer. That means had the strength of the logic. Okay, Reb Shimon. So the Amar Tamid Meratza v'aksiv al mitzvah v'nasa. What does Reb Shimon do with the words al mitzvah v'nasa that it should be on his forehead and it would be an appeasement? That means only when it's on his forehead. He says hahu l'kvayolei makam udasid. That's just saying where to wear it. That he wears it on his forehead. Rabbi Yehuda l'kvayolei makam inali. So where does Rabbi Yehuda know where to wear it? If he says that it only is effective when it's on the forehead, but where's the pasuk that tells me where to wear it? So he says nafkalei al mitzvah. Al mitzvah. Vinasa, al mitzchay tamid vinasa. It says al mitzchay and drop the word vinasa. Just that itself tells me where to wear it. Reb Shimon nami typically al mitzchay. So 1 second. So why doesn't Reb Shimon just say that the position of where it's supposed to be is from al mitzchay? Vinasa is coming to tell me that it's an appeasement only when it's on his forehead. So why does Reb Shimon say that it's appeasement even if it's not on his forehead? You're right. Gemara says enachanami. So then, if that's the case, so what does he do with al mitzvah v'nasa? Reb Shimon says it's an appeasement even when he's not wearing it. Al malach, rei lametzach meratzah, shein rei lametzach ein meratzah, la'afuki nishbar tzitz blei meratzah. Reb Shimon's telling you that when it says al mitzvah v'nasa, that extra word is telling me not that he needs to wear it, but it has to be able to wear it. If he's able to wear it because it's not broken, so then it's meratzah. But if he's not able to wear it, then it doesn't. Then, like we said, everyone agrees that if it's broken, it doesn't work. Now the Gemara has a very interesting point. It says, "Rabbi Yehuda nishbar tzitz minole." How does he know if it's broken, it doesn't work? Now the Gemara's question is odd, because Rabbi Yehuda holds if he's not wearing it, it doesn't work. If it's broken, he's not wearing it either. How can he wear it if it's broken? So the point is, what the Gemara is saying, the way that Taisvus Yeshanim learns this, is that if no, just it was cracked, I think. Yeah, anything broken. So if it's cracked and he's not wearing it, so what we're saying is like this: if the rule was that when it was cracked, if we don't have any other source for a cracked tzitz that it's invalid, so then we would say that al mitzchay v'nasa is coming to tell me that when it's cracked, it's invalid. And Rabbi Yehuda says more than that. He says that even if he's not wearing it, it's invalid. It's not effective. So I need two sources. I need one source that if it's cracked, it's enough to allow al mitzchay v'nasa to tell me that if he's not wearing it, it's not effective. So where does he know? Rabbi Yehuda nishbar tzitz minale. So nafkalei mi metzach mitzchay. Mitzchay. You could have said al metzach. What does it mean? Mitzchay means that it can't be. That it can't be cracked. That extra vav. Reb Shimon metzach mitzchay le'mashmalei. This is usually what machlekasin come down to. There's one letter. Will they darshan this one extra letter or not? Okay. Shekayach. Caught up. A little bit ahead also. A good day. A good tevach, everyone.